Well, hello, friends. Welcome to the From Busy to Rich podcast. Our podcast exists to inspire advisors like you to increase your profitability and your quality of life, but not just for you, for those around you, for those that you serve. And this episode is going to very specifically talk about that part of the quality of life for you and for those that you're around a lot. We're going to get a little personal, and I really appreciate, Wes, your willingness to go there, as they say. So thanks for being here today. We appreciate your wisdom and look forward to hearing more.
Absolutely. Looking forward to diving in.
Well, and Justin, welcome to you. Thanks for being here as always.
Great to be here.
We're going to talk about a topic that every person listening to this show experiences every day of their life, without fail. And that is this feeling, and this could be very small, and it could be very big. But the feeling is, I don't like how things are going. Now, that might be related to traffic. It might be related to waiting for an elevator to come, or it could be your marriage or your business or your health. But all of us experience this as part of just the human condition. So, Wes, where do you hear this? And maybe do you have any examples of where you hear this sentiment?
Yeah, well, I had a recent, and this happens frequently. I've had it happen with some of our team members on occasion. I've had it happen with myself. And I've had it happen recently with a really good friend of mine, also an advisor, a friend of mine. And basically it sounds something along the lines of this usually. It's, I don't like the way things are going. It's just crazy right now. Things are all over the place. I feel really tired. I need change, something along those lines. And so the difficulty with that, Andy, is here's the thing I believe with all my heart. I believe most of us, when we suffer our greatest, it is because we're unnecessarily suffering at the hands of the story we're telling ourselves. Most of us in life, we suffer unnecessarily at the story we tell ourselves. Now, the positive side of that is that most of us will experience some of the greatest opportunities of our life and unlock them because of the stories we tell ourselves. Because as we think, so we are. Age-old wisdom that's been around for as long as there's been wisdom, that is a staple truth. The eye can only see, the ear can only hear what the brain is looking for, as Dan Sullivan likes to say. But the reality of this truth is that it works positively and can be leveraged for our benefit or ignored to our detriment. So when I get that kind of approach, and I think all of us, and you could tell your story, Andy, I could tell my story about times in life where we don't really know why. And we might point to something that's closest to us that is just easy to point to. Maybe it's like, well, work's not going well. And you know, it's just so crazy and things are tough and it's hard. And they'll go through and they say all these things. They're pointing to nothing specific. They just happen to be in a place where work is the drum they're beating, but it maybe had nothing to do at all with what's going on there at work. So one of the things, and here's just something that I think we can dive into the conversation. I want to get both your thoughts around, because if you're riding in the car and you're listening to this, you're watching online right now, someone will say that to you. You've probably said it to yourself. So the point is not that it's not going to occur. It's like, is it useful to stay in that condition? Is it serving any good purpose? Is it helping us at all? Or is it just preventing us from becoming the kind of people and being in the kind of place that we desire most and that we were created for? And so I think to start, here's where I automatically go. And then I think we beat this up a little bit is, what would things have to look like right now for you to say things are great? Like, what's a day in the life of you at work? Because usually they're coming to me and it's like, we're talking about work's not going well. I feel like things are off the rails. It's not the same as it used to be. Things are difficult, hard, not where I want to end up. So what would a day in the life of you have to look like at work in order for you to feel like things are awesome? Things are going well. And your answer can't be, I wouldn't be at work, I'd be at the beach, right? It'd be like, the beach is fun and we need those kind of things, but you were built for work. And whatever your work is, you know, that can change. But what would it have to look like for it to be beautiful? You know what, Andy? No one has an immediate answer to that question that comes to me with those statements before. Like, I don't even know. Then how can we possibly fix it?
So the larger issue of I don't like where things are in this area, that area, this area.
Yeah.
It becomes an unanswerable or unsolvable puzzle, because it's like having all the puzzle pieces, but you don't have the box that shows you what you're supposed to make. Right.
Yeah.
I can't get this puzzle figured out. Well, what's it supposed to look like? I don't know. Okay, well, then you're not going to solve the puzzle because you don't actually know what you're trying to create. So the first step of solving, I don't like how things are going, which is just, again, part of the human condition. This side of heaven, you're going to have days, some a lot, some, not so much. But you're going to have some part of your day that says, I don't like how this is going. Your first suggestion is to ask yourself, do I have clarity on what I would like, what success would like if things were going well?
Yeah, that's right. Because most people are telling themselves a story. This is all the story you're telling yourself. Because most of them are telling themselves a story about they don't like the way things are. They wish they were different. What they're not telling themselves a story about is, what story do I want to be telling where I would say things are great? Things are going fantastic in all the big areas of life I care about, including my work. It's an absent conversation. So they spend a lot of time. It's like, Joyce Meyer always says, it's like sitting in a rocking chair. It keeps you busy, just doesn't take you anywhere. and that's what that is. That when you tell yourself that victim story, things aren't going well, so hard, there is no forward progress in those conversations. It is a rocking chair of stagnant depression.
It's funny when it's a rocking chair. It's not funny when it's your Groundhogs Day, but it's not a movie. It's your life.
Absolutely.
Right. It's a great, funny movie, but the reason it's a great movie, Groundhog's Day, for those who haven't seen it, see it, is that there's this level of truth in it that this gentleman was wasting his life. And it took him repeating every day to figure out, wait, there's a lot of opportunity in that day for me to be a better person. And the unique part about that movie, which is so beautiful and so funny, is it's the same day. Right?
That's
He
right.
gets to do it again and again and again.
Yeah.
But the beauty of it is that he kept getting a day. He wasn't dead, right? He kept getting a day. And so if we have another day, then we have time to do something about our, I don't like this. Right.
Well, buckle up, Andy, because you just mentioned one of my favorite movies of all time, Groundhog's Day.
What's your favorite line from that movie?
Oh man, well, between Punxsutawney Phil and when I liked when he wore when he sat in front of the Jeopardy and he would go in and the best part is, like, he's just answering the questions, and then before he asks the question, he just looks over at the lady, says the Rhone. Because he was like, what river is da da da? And it was like, oh God. And but the movie, I mean, I think does speak deeply to this truth that we're talking about, because he's the same guy.
Yeah.
Through the same day over and over again. The only difference is he's telling himself a different story. And it's causing him to see things differently, and it's causing him to respond to the environment differently than he would. And he had one segment of it where he was just freaked out. He had another segment of it where he was just living life to the full from a, vice standpoint, and going as far as every day was a vacation. It was going to be a party and live wild. And then he comes back to the place where he's just finally super depressed. He's like, I can't handle it anymore. Until finally he starts telling himself a story. If I'm going to be here anyway, how can I make beautiful what God has placed in my hand, basically? Yeah. Which that is the antidote. There's the great, in Philippians, great writing that I love, which says, be anxious for nothing, but in everything through prayer, supplication, and thanksgiving, make your requests known unto God, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, will guard your heart and your mind in Christ Jesus. And the analogy here, whether you're a Jesus follower or not, just think with me for a second, the wisdom of these words is, be anxious for nothing, meaning there are things in life that you're going to go, I'm anxious. So that should be an alarm bell. And when those things occur, you have an opportunity to do something. You have a story to tell. And that story to be, you can keep talking about how anxious you are and how you're living in anxiety and how that is. And listen, I get it. There is stuff that bothers you, and there's stuff that bothers me that occur. But how I experience my life will be dependent upon the story I tell myself next. And so the story I choose to tell myself next is not, okay, I don't need to be anxious for this because it's not going to help. And in prayer, supplication, and supplications are like definitive requests. So it is like, make those requests known unto God, and the peace of God, which passes all understanding, guards your heart and mind in Christ Jesus. But think about that. What you're really doing there is exactly what we said in the beginning, is you're saying, what am I asking for? And make it specific, because if it's just, I don't like this, I don't want to feel this way, I'm anxious.
Yeah.
You're not asking for anything. You're like, I don't want to feel anxious. Okay, well, what would have to happen for you not to feel anxious? Like, what would a day in the life of you? And here's also something I want to hit while we're on this, Andy, because it's so critical to the human condition. A well-lived life is not one absence of adversity or difficult or hard things. Some of the most satisfying things that you and I and Justin and everybody listening have ever accomplished in our lives were because we had to overcome something hard. Every movie you watch that you love was an adventure causing some hero to have to overcome something that was hard and adverse, and you loved it because that existed. So in life, it's not that the difficult, like when I say what would have to happen in your life in order for you to not have anxiety, for you to feel like it was going well, I'm not saying you have absence of difficult things. In fact, I don't think you can have a happy, content life without things that are hard that you're doing, that you're pushing for.
Right. Yeah. It's like going into the gym and saying, I would like to get stronger, but not lift any weights.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, there's a drug that you can take that will build muscle, but it'll also change other parts of your body in ways you don't appreciate. You can't do shortcuts, right?
Even with shortcuts, you still have to do something, right? Like you take those drugs, you still got to work out.
You get better.
If you couldn't tell, I haven't actually tried that. Working out with drugs. But no, I work out. But yeah, you still have to do the thing. It just amplifies it. I'm also this is I think one of the keys to the people in my life I know that are at a level of success that I would like to reach. And if you're listening to the show, it's likely because you have some measure of respect beyond, oh, he's a nice guy, of Wes. Like, you're like, Wes has figured some stuff out.
Sure.
And what I am confident of is that if we took the time to say, hey, Wes, tell me about a hard time in your life, tell me something hard you went through, he'd say, well, okay, so now we're going to go a daily podcast, because there'd be so much to talk about. Like, there's that just keeps coming, right? And so it is not the absence of difficulties. It is, how do you navigate those difficulties? And so that's what we're talking about today. What do you do when you say, I don't like how things are going? And I think that I was sharing a story earlier with the guys before we started recording of, there are the things you do by reaction. And the difference I try to explain to people is, if I throw something at you, you will react, right? But then you will respond. Reactions are involuntary. How you respond to that, is really who you are. Reactions just happen. But then how do you respond? And that's what we're talking about today. If you're listening now, you're going to experience, and you're likely are experiencing, I don't like how things are going. You might react to that in such a way, but how are you going to respond to it? And the people that I know that are successful, who have the life, the marriage, the work, the attitude, the health that I want, their responses are very thoughtful, intentional. And I'll end with this last part, which is that there's something unique about, in that scripture from Philippians, that is, I think, really powerful. Is it says, hey, ask for things. If you're worried, try not to worry, but ask for what you want, but then be thankful. Not thankful because you got it already, but also like, just have a grateful condition.
Yeah.
Now. And I haven't fixed your problem yet, but just be grateful now, which is very not normal.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful language, because contentment is impossible in life without a big ambition and a grateful condition. It is impossible, because you were built to make things better. So it doesn't mean things are going to be left the way they are, but you were also built to enjoy where you were on the way to where you're going. And regardless of how difficult life might be for you, I've seen guys in prison that have such a grateful spirit and that are counting blessings they have. There's a whole lot of things they wish were different, and there's a whole lot of things they're working on changing, but you could be in any condition and there's something to count your blessings for. And I think what tends to happen if we don't just like call this what it is, and we don't call it out and because I think that's what most people, you know what, I see this as popular response. This is the way I did it a long time and still fall into this if I'm not careful is when things aren't going well, one response is I just turn up the volume. I run faster, work harder. If I just run faster and work harder, then it'll get better. And you may achieve a bunch of stuff and like actually accomplish a lot. Problem is you can only run so fast and work so hard. And we talked about this in like even growing a practice is like continuing to do what you've always done faster and more eventually breaks down. You actually have to stop and go, what do I want? And how do I do different things in order to get there? Because what I've been doing got me here. It won't get me there.
So so you're saying is the reaction is basically to double down. Like
double down. I'm just going to turn up the volume and run faster and work harder in the way I'm approaching life already. And what that's gotten you is, and listen, there's probably some really good things that it's produced for you. You've made a living, you're married, but you can go extreme in like any of these directions. And if you're getting those alarm bells, the anxiety, that things aren't going well, turning up the volume is not going to fix that. I think, Tim Keller would say that, hey, if you're on the wrong road, you don't need motivation to speed you up. You need direction to turn you around, education to turn you around. And, but here's the other way. And this is wiring. I think how we're wounded, like just as people that's in there. You can also go in the cave, which is like that place of passivity where memories exceed their dreams.
Yeah.
And it's like, and you see that, and you see people they'll play office, maybe they go to the office. They're really not doing anything there. They go to the gym. They're not doing anything there. They're no longer, their ambition for a bigger future because of just the debilitating feelings they have of depression, of anxiety, guilt, maybe of whether they failed some things because everybody's tried stuff that's failed, cause them to go, I'm just not even going to look at a bigger future than my current today. It's not worth it. And I'm not doing anything to change it, but I don't like it. But both don't like it is the common denominator. So till you define that, and then you say, all right, so the thing that I can do today, if you're having that feeling right now, is to stop and say, doing more of what I'm already doing is not going to solve my feeling that I'm having right now. And I don't have to live in this rocking chair of this feeling. Yeah. What I can choose to do in this very moment right now is tell myself a different story, because the person that I'm listening to right now is not my real voice. It is a lie. And it's something that's causing me to live a less than optimal life and suffer unnecessarily. And you need to call that out. And the next thing you need to do is say, what life am I trying to live? What life would I be living if it was great? And dream, free yourself to dream in those areas and do it long term, and also get it up real close, short term. Hey, what does a beautiful life look like? Because you were built for beauty. And when you understand that, can get that, and that God is for you in that, and wants that for you, you all of a sudden, the story you're going to start telling yourself are going to have to do with how you get there instead of why you don't like being here. And it seems slight and it seems not a big deal, but it's a big deal. And it matters. And I've seen so many people that were in terrible places, and I've been there myself, that just that one single thing automatically causes them to begin telling themselves a different story and living that story.
There's part of that verse as well. It says that you'll receive a peace beyond understanding. And the reason I really like that verse is because I like that part of the verse, because it basically says, like, you'll have a feeling that doesn't make sense. Like, what's different? Oh, nothing. Like, what's changed different about your situation? Nothing. So how is it that some people can navigate not just life, but even a more difficult life better than others, with peace? Right?
Yeah.
Why there's some people that are in jail and they're just full of rage and anger, and others that can navigate it and become better.
You know what?
Go ahead.
One of the best examples of this that I've ever seen was with my dad. Because my dad, my whole life, my dad has been just a super optimistic guy. And it wasn't because life was always easy and great. Okay. But he chose to tell himself a better story, I believe. Now, some people play with optimism in the sense that they're like, oh, well, you're not a realist. Here's what I would say. There's grounded optimism to be had. Like, it's not that you're divorcing yourself from the reality of your situation.
Right.
So you're not denying the reality, but you do deny its finality. You're saying, hey, but better is possible. And here's what better could be. And one just really cool example I saw him go through is back in 2017, I got a phone call from my mom at like 2:00 in the morning, which, those are never like, hey, we're just calling to check in. Everything's
Right,
great.
right.
It's like, somebody's dead, dying, or, it's not good. So it was one of those phone calls. She said, hey, your dad, you need to come get him. And they live like basically 45 minutes outside of town on the lake. And cause he feels real bad and things are not good. And basically we were like, well, call an ambulance, don't call. Cause if things are that bad, long story short, the ambulance came and basically called the helicopter, because by this time he was basically out of he couldn't stand or function, couldn't communicate. He was still very strong, as they would tell you, because they had to sedate him in order to keep his arms down to his sides and put him on the helicopter. And they fly him to the emergency room. I go get my mom. We end up down there. Long story short, they figure out he's got bacterial meningitis.
Oh, wow.
And to just some stats, how true these were or population wise, I don't know, but I believe them based on some research. They say about 20% of the people that have bacterial meningitis will live. And the older you are, the worse your chances. And he was like 67 or so at the time.
Oh, wow.
And so, anyway, long story short, things turned. He got pneumonia. He was on a tracheotomy. They told us multiple times, call the family, he's going to die. And there's whole stories on our side on all that. But he ended up like continuing to live. And when he walked out of the hospital, he walked out with assistance of a walker. And they said, well, a couple things you need to know about your dad. One, he'll never see out of his right eye again. Because the bacterial meningitis had done something to the back of it and it was all swollen up. So he had a patch over it. They said, two, he's never going to eat again. Not without the assistance of a feeding tube, which he had in his stomach, which he affectionately called Philip, because he would fill it up with his food.
Nice.
And they said, and third, he will never walk more than 20 yards without the assistance of a walker. And so we go home to that. And again, he had lost, I think he was weighing in at like $120 at the time. Dad walks around at like 170, 180 pounds, in that range normally. And so here's what I saw. He was fully aware of what the diagnosis was. And you never met a person that had more gratitude every day than what he had. And because on the one hand, he had a very grateful condition. He did not deny reality. He knew all those things and he knew what he was currently experiencing. What he denied was the finality of it. He had a big ambition. He said, look, I don't know. I know God can do anything. And I know what I'm going to do is everything that depends on me. And he woke up every day and I'd ask him, hey, how'd the day go? He'd go, hey, went great, son. I woke up, I have plenty of food in my stomach, directly in my stomach, because it goes through Philip, right? Yep. And I stood for actually 10 minutes today without the walker. And it would be little things like that. And he'd say, but I'm just so grateful that, I'm here and I get the opportunity. Yeah. And what happened over the course of months is he had that attitude every day. He told himself a different story, that his situation was good and that it was going to get better and that he was going to do whatever he needed to do and trusted that all kinds of things could happen. Today, Andy, he runs, multiple miles a day. He eats a lot. He's one of his favorite activities. Without Philip through his mouth hole, not his stomach hole that he had. And he sees great out of both eyes. So now again, here's the thing though. And if you met him today and he would tell that story, you'd be like, he must be grateful for all the things that he accomplished and that he went through, all the outcome of it. But he was the same guy that had the patch on his eye, the feeding tube in his stomach, and couldn't get out of bed without help. He's the same man then with a grateful condition and exciting ambition. So I'm telling you, I don't know where you're at today, people listening. I know that you aren't listening to this by accident. And, listen, we all go through real hard times. And I don't mean to dismiss the thing that you might be experiencing. And you told me your story. I'm sure that it would be weighty. I'm just saying that what doesn't help it is for you to sit in the rocking chair of depression and just continue to marinate in how you don't like things. You can do something. You can begin telling yourself a different story because better is possible.
If you're feeling, I think depression is one of those things. I think shame, I think anger, anything that you feel a lot of that's not getting you to a better place is what we're talking about.
Yeah.
So you can feel a lot of stuff, but unless it's taking you, like you said, in the right direction, then it's not the solution.
Right.
Right. It's not to accelerate. It's not, I'm mad. I'm going to feel doubly mad. That's not the answer. So I want to thank you for listening today. I want to thank Wes and Justin for being here. And I want to encourage all of you, if you are a listener to this show, whether this is the first time or the 50th time, we would really appreciate a review. This literally takes just a minute. Find us on the podcast app on Apple, or if you listen on Spotify, you can leave a certain number of stars. And when you do that, it helps other people find the show and shows your appreciation for it. So thank you for listening today, and we'll see you on our next episode.